The sun poured generously over the manicured lawns and gleaming sidewalks of West Hill Reserve, a high-end gated community nestled along the Rhode Island coastline. That particular Saturday afternoon, the neighborhood swimming pool sparkled under the golden light, a perfect mirror of cloudless skies. The scent of sunscreen mingled with the sharp tang of chlorine, and children's laughter bounced off the water like music. Lounge chairs lined the perimeter of the pool, each with families or individuals soaking up the summer warmth. From young professionals to retirees, the residents of West Hill had gathered for what promised to be another tranquil, picture-perfect day. But peace, as it often does, has a way of unraveling when prejudice creeps in. At the far end of the pool, a tall man emerged from the water in a slow, deliberate motion. He wasn't just any man. There was a stoicism to him, a presence that demanded attention even without a word spoken. His skin glistened with water as it trickled down his broad shoulders and the salt and pepper beard that framed his chiseled face. He reached for a white towel on the lounge chair, his movements calm and methodical. That man was Commander Malcolm Rains, a retired Navy SEAL who had spent more than 30 years serving his country with distinction and honor. At 52, his frame still carried the strength of a warrior, though his eyes, piercing and patient, suggested the weight of 1,000 stories never told. He now lived a quieter life, a life of reflection and rest, in the very community he had earned every right to belong to. Malcolm had owned a home in West Hill Reserve for over a decade. He rarely attended social functions, not because he was aloof, but because years in covert operations had shaped in him a love for solitude. Still, the pool was one of the few places he enjoyed. It reminded him of peace, a hard-earned one. Not far from where Malcolm dried off stood a woman named Caroline Mercer. Caroline was in her mid-40s, with platinum blonde hair styled in large, beachy waves that had likely taken an hour and a small fortune to achieve. Her large designer sunglasses covered most of her face, but her lips were perpetually pursed into a disapproving line. In one hand she held her phone, in the other, a straw sun hat. She wore a caftan that looked like it belonged more at a Hamptons gala than a local pool. She had moved into West Hill just 3 months earlier, but in that short time had managed to position herself, without any official appointment, as an unofficial enforcer of community decorum. To her, order meant uniformity. And to her, uniformity meant everyone should look, dress, and behave exactly like the image in her mind. When she noticed Malcolm at the pool that day, something in her hardened. She stood up from her chair, slipped on her sandals, and walked with deliberate confidence toward him. The slap of her heels against the concrete was sharp and almost ceremonial. "Excuse me, sir," she said, with the faux politeness that barely concealed suspicion. "This is a private pool. Are you a guest of someone here?" Malcolm turned, his face unreadable at first. Then the faintest hint of amusement passed over him. "No," he said simply. "I live here." Caroline tilted her head as though trying to understand a foreign language. "Really? I don't think I've seen you around before. Are you sure you're in the right place?" Malcolm gave a small shrug, one he'd given 1,000 times before in the face of misplaced authority. "I've lived in Unit 147 for the past 11 years. Caroline's lips parted in exaggerated surprise. "That can't be. I know almost everyone here, and I've never seen you at any HOA meetings or social functions." Malcolm's response was calm. "I don't usually attend those. I prefer quiet." Caroline wasn't deterred. She adjusted her sunglasses, then placed one manicured hand on her hip. "Unit 147, she repeated, narrowing her eyes. "That's the home of Commander Rains. A Navy SEAL, if I'm not mistaken." Malcolm raised an eyebrow. "That's right," he said. "I'm Commander Rains." A pause followed. Caroline's smile faltered. "Oh no, you must be mistaken. Commander Rains is a decorated veteran, a real war hero." "I am," Malcolm replied unfazed. "I served 32 years. Afghanistan, Iraq, Colombia, the Gulf, you name it." The disbelief in her face transformed into agitation. "Look, I don't want to argue with you," she said, tapping her phone screen. "But if you don't have a resident badge, I'm going to have to report this. We've had issues." Malcolm didn't respond. He'd been shot at by terrorists, interrogated by foreign agents, even stranded in the middle of the Hindu Kush. But in that moment, the sting of something deeper cut through him, a quiet humiliation he had encountered too many times before. Without warning, Caroline raised the phone to her ear. Yes, hello? This is Caroline Mercer from West Hill Reserve. I'm at the community pool, and there's a man here. He says he lives in Unit 147, but I'm telling you, he doesn't. He's refusing to leave. Could you send someone down? By now, several pool-goers had begun to notice the interaction. Some whispered quietly. Others just listened. Malcolm sat back down on the edge of the lounge chair, unbothered on the surface. But inside, there was a storm. Not of anger, but of fatigue. How many times had he walked into a restaurant, a store, a building, only to be asked if he belonged? Within 5 minutes, a security guard appeared at the gate and walked briskly to the poolside. His expression was neutral at first, until he saw Malcolm. "Commander Rains?" he asked, slowing his steps. Malcolm stood up. "Afternoon, Miguel." The guard blinked. "Sir, I didn't expect to see you here." Caroline's face paled slightly. "Wait, what?" Miguel straightened his posture. "This is Commander Malcolm Rains. He's a longtime homeowner here. Highly decorated. Served in multiple theaters. Everyone on staff knows who he is." Caroline's composure cracked. I didn't know. I was just trying to." "To do what?" Malcolm asked, stepping closer. His voice was still calm, but now carried the unmistakable weight of command. "Enforce a policy that doesn't exist? Or make sure someone like me doesn't make you uncomfortable in your picture-perfect world?" "I didn't mean," Caroline began. "You meant exactly what you did," Malcolm cut in. "You saw me and decided I didn't belong. You saw my skin before you saw the man." Caroline opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Miguel turned to Malcolm. "Would you like her removed from the premises, sir?" Malcolm looked at her, then back at Miguel. "No. Let her stay," he said. "But she should get to know the people she lives around before making assumptions." Caroline's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm sorry." She grabbed her belongings and moved to the opposite end of the pool area, her stride no longer confident, her eyes avoiding everyone else. The mood around the pool began to shift. Some nodded silently at Malcolm. One man, older and wiry, offered a quiet salute. Malcolm walked back to his seat, draped the towel over his shoulder, and then, without another word, dived back into the pool. The surface rippled, then stilled. It wasn't long before the normalcy of a summer afternoon returned. Kids played. Ice melted in glasses. And Caroline Mercer sat alone, her phone forgotten in her lap, the shame still burning behind her sunglasses. Malcolm didn't speak of the incident again, but something had changed. The next morning, a note was slipped under his door. It was from Caroline. The handwriting was elegant but shaky. "Commander Rains, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you reflection, humility, and the commitment to be better. Thank you for your grace. Caroline Mercer." Malcolm didn't reply. He didn't need to. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon, during a community barbecue organized by the HOA, Caroline stood up in front of the group to make an announcement. She had, she said, realized the difference between enforcing rules and imposing assumptions. She spoke, visibly nervous, about how easy it was to let biases dictate our first impressions. And she thanked Commander Rains publicly. Malcolm nodded from the back of the crowd, arms folded. It was a small moment. But sometimes, small moments are how big change begins. Because real strength isn't about raising your voice or demanding to be seen. It's about standing firm in who you are, even when others try to erase your presence. And Malcolm Rains, warrior turned neighbor, had reminded everyone that day what dignity truly looked like. Not in medals, not in speeches, but in composure, restraint, and the quiet power of not backing down. And from that moment on, no one ever questioned whether he belonged. They knew.